Most people know TV Girl for their viral TikTok songs like Lovers Rock and Not Allowed, but beneath the surface of those hits is a much larger story. A story about how an indie pop project grew into one of the internet's most defining sounds. So let's explore the world of TV Girl. They started in San Diego, California in 2010 as a three-piece: Brad Petering, Trung No, and Jason Wyman. The band began as an outlet to blend the toxic ideas of love with the rising influence of hip-hop. At first, Brad handled the guitar and some vocals, but he would later step into the role of the primary vocalist and frontman of the TV Girl we know today. Trung was the original main vocalist, also contributing on the guitar and keyboards. Jason rounded the group out, focusing on keyboards and the production side of the band's music. The band's vision was to blend lo-fi pop, samples, and hip-hop beats with ironic and bittersweet takes on love, creating debatably some of their best music at the start with EPs like Benny and the Jets and singles like Girls Like Me. In 2012, TV Girl made The Wild, The Innocent, The TV Shuffle, a compilation or mixtape of early songs. The album was never officially released, but in 2025, they made a vinyl of the project, giving a thank you to the earlier supporters. In 2013, we got another EP called Lonely Woman, which is another released project that has some pretty popular songs like She Smokes in Bed and Easier to Cry, which are some personal favorites of mine. And the funny thing is about this EP is that a lot of fans will listen to it and not even realize it isn't even Brad singing. It was Trung, and nobody really noticed besides the fans who listened when it was released. They ran into some controversy pretty early on due to their heavy use of samples. Their debut song in 2010 titled If You Want It sampled Todd Rundgren's Hello It's Me very prominently. The main hook came directly from it. The song ended up blowing up pretty fast on music blogs and got traction as their breakout track. Warner/Chappelle, who held the publishing rights, filed a takedown and the song was removed from streaming platforms. Rundgren himself wasn't directly involved at first, but his right holders essentially shut TV Girl's debut single down. The aftermath of this controversy is actually pretty surprising. TV Girl leaned into the controversy, calling themselves sample happy and sort of wearing the lawsuit like a badge of honor. They even joked that it was probably the best press they ever got, because suddenly blogs and fans were paying attention. The drama established TV Girl as a kind of outlaw indie group from the start. It also explains why their later albums rely more on obscure, less risky samples, or why they're chopped in ways that are harder to catch. TV Girl went through a pretty big transformation during this time. Trung No, the main vocalist, left the band. Now there isn't a whole lot out there on why Trung left the band. The band has never given a super clear explanation, but from interviews and fan discussions, the main idea is that Trung wanted to move on from music and TV Girl and didn't want to pursue music long term. After he left, Brad stepped in as the primary vocalist, which completely shifted the band's sound into what most people know today. As for Trung, he didn't really resurface musically after leaving. He kind of disappeared from the spotlight. Fans who were around at the time noticed the change in the vocals between Lonely Woman and French Exit. But as I mentioned earlier, newer fans often don't realize Trung was even the singer. A lot of early fans, including myself, still love Trung's voice and feel like his era has a different, more pure lo-fi vibe, but most people agree that Brad taking over is what gave TV Girl its lasting identity. Without that shift, the band probably wouldn't have evolved into what it is now. In 2014, TV Girl released their first full album, which I'm sure many of you know, titled French Exit. It marked the official beginning of the Brad era, his first time as a sole vocalist and frontman after Trung's departure. It's often considered by fans the definitive TV Girl record, setting the tone for everything that followed. French Exit is a lo-fi sample heavy indie pop with washed out production. The album is bittersweet, sometimes with even dark lyrics. This contrast of pretty sound, ugly truth became TV Girl's signature. The album follows themes of relationships gone wrong, toxic love, fleeting romance, and loneliness. The album sounds like they're giving a commentary on modern love and the shallow side of dating culture. Most of the songs are delivered with Brad's deadpan, detached vocal style. French Exit also has TV Girl's most streamed song, Lovers Rock, on it, which didn't blow up immediately, but years later it went viral on TikTok, cementing it as TV Girl's signature track. Lovers Rock is oftentimes the first TV Girl song that people hear. The album consists of other major songs from the band such as Birds Don't Sing and The Blonde. The album became a cult classic online. Fans still consider it their best album. French Exit was important because it established TV Girl's identity as more than just a blog band. They proved they could make a cohesive full-length record with their unique style, and cemented Brad as the new face and the voice of the band. Without French Exit, TV Girl might have stayed in indie obscurity. Instead, it gave them the foundation for the cult following that later exploded with TikTok. TV Girl released 2 new albums during this era. In 2016, TV Girl dropped their second most streamed album, Who Really Cares? The record was way more cynical, darker, even more detached in tone than their previous. If French Exit felt dreamy and bittersweet, Who Really Cares took a much more jaded, cynical view of love and relationships. The title alone almost says it all. Brad's whole delivery on this record leans even more deadpan and detached, almost like he's commenting on the absurdity of modern romance rather than feeling it. Musically, the record keeps the lo-fi, sample-heavy foundation, but it's tighter, slicker, and in some ways colder than French Exit. The samples here lean more towards obscure 60s and 70s records, giving the album that washed out retro pop sheen. But the lyrics cut harsher. This album gave us some incredible tracks like Not Allowed, Taking What's Not Yours, and Cigarettes Out the Window. Lyrically, Who Really Cares is probably the most cynical TV Girl record. Brad describes situations that are shallow, toxic, or straight up depressing, but he does it in this ironic, almost humorous way. Instead of romanticizing heartbreak, he leans into the emptiness of it. Reception-wise, the album didn't explode immediately, like the others. It mostly circulated online with their cult following, but over the years, and especially once TikTok rediscovered Not Allowed, fans started viewing it as one of their strongest projects. For a lot of people, Who Really Cares became their favorite album after seeing all the TikTok edits, including myself. Funnily enough, I liked this album so much when I was 14 that I made a clothing brand called Who Really Cares. The idea of the album really spoke to me in that time as I was feeling the weight of wanting others to think I was cool. So I took Who Really Cares as life advice. By the time Death of a Party Girl came out in 2018, TV Girl had fully embraced their identity. Hazy, sample-heavy indie pop paired with cynical but strangely comforting lyrics. If French Exit was bittersweet and Who Really Cares was coldly ironic, Death of a Party Girl was the hangover record. Dreamy but more melodic and reflective. Brad himself described the album as being like a sequel to French Exit, but instead of the youthful, sharp commentary, like the narrator has grown a little older and more tired of the same cycles. Thematically, the album follows a central character, the party girl. She represents fleeting relationships, hookup culture, and the kind of aimless late-night lifestyle that feels fun at first but slowly leaves you empty. Throughout the record, Brad sort of narrates her rise and fall, using her as a metaphor for disillusionment with modern romance. This album also gave us some of TV Girl's core tracks like Blue Hair, Pretty Boy, and Every Stupid Actress. Musically, it's very much in line with TV Girl's formula, lush samples, lo-fi textures, and Brad's detached vocals. But compared to Who Really Cares, it feels softer, less sarcastic, and more melodic. The sharp bite is replaced with a kind of weary resignation. Reception-wise, Death of a Party Girl didn't go viral like French Exit eventually did, but amongst fans, it's considered a gem. Some even argue it's their most cohesive project. Many listeners connected deeply with Blue Hair in particular, which years later became another TikTok anthem, giving the album a second life. Ultimately, some say Death of a Party Girl closed the chapter on early TV Girl. It's almost like the end of Brad's trilogy on love, disillusionment, and modern dating culture, wrapping up the lo-fi era before the band moved toward a more conceptual and narrative-driven projects later on. After Death of a Party Girl dropped in 2018, TV Girl didn't immediately follow it up with another big album. Instead, the next few years were kind of a middle period for the band. On the surface, it looked quiet, but behind the scenes, this was actually when they started building the momentum that would eventually make them blow up way bigger than before. For one, TV Girl spent a lot of this time touring. They weren't massive yet, but they had this really loyal fan base that kept showing up. If you went to a show around then, it felt like you were in on some secret, like you found a band nobody else really knew about. Brad leaned into that too, with his sort of detached, sarcastic stage persona, which fans loved because it matched the irony of the music itself. Even though they weren't dropping new albums, TV Girl stayed busy with side projects and vault releases. In 2020, they put out The Night in Question, French Exit Outtakes, which was basically a collection of songs recorded during the French Exit sessions, but left off the album. They also revisited their early days by putting The Wild, The Innocent, The TV Shuffle officially online, which up until then was more of an underground release. Stuff like this kept the older fans hooked, even without a brand new record. The Night in Question, French Exit Outtakes. I won't lie, this is a personal favorite of mine. To me, this album fully represents what I think of whenever I think about TV Girl. Almost wintry, snowy sadness that feels comforting. This album gave us one of their core songs, It Almost Worked, but I believe this project is criminally overlooked. It not only has my favorite TV Girl song on it, but my favorite song in general. So if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about this song more than the others. The Desolation Tango. This song actually means so much to me that I had to write about what it makes me feel. And I think it paints a pretty good picture of not just the song, but the entire album. So if you don't mind listening, I hope you enjoy what I've wrote. The Desolation Tango. Hearing this song reminds me of winter, the feeling of looking out the window of your parents' car and seeing the snow and feeling that sparkle. It makes me feel and realize that we are beings made of love. I'm the love my parents had for each other when they had me, the love they felt for me throughout my life, the love I've been shown by others, the love I feel for others, the love I feel for this world, the love I feel for myself. All this love put together makes me who I am, and I think that's the most beautiful thing ever. The girl's voice that appears throughout the song, mixed with the feelings I just spoke of, make me uncontrollably smile, and I feel myself glow yellow. It makes me feel as if I am truly a being of pure love. While hearing this song, I feel not an ounce of hatred in my body. Now, I know I'm no poet, so thank you for listening to that. Back to the timeline. Right as TV Girl was getting their second life online, they surprised fans by teaming up with indie pop singer Jordana for a joint EP called Summer's Over. This project was really interesting because it wasn't just Brad doing his own usual detached thing. It blended his style with Jordana's softer, more emotional vocals, creating something fresh while still feeling like TV Girl. The EP came together pretty naturally. Jordana had been opening for some of TV Girl's shows, and there was clearly a good chemistry between them. Instead of just doing a tour together, they decided to actually collaborate on music. The result was a 7-song project that feels like the perfect soundtrack to late summer fading into fall. Catchy, bittersweet, and kinda nostalgic. What makes Summer's Over stand out is that it isn't just TV Girl featuring another singer. Jordana's presence changes the feel of the songs. They become a little warmer, a little more vulnerable, balancing out Brad's usual detached delivery. Fans received it very well. Some people saw it as a nice bridge project while waiting for the next full TV Girl record, while others actually consider it one of the best things they've done because of how natural the collab feels. Either way, it showed that TV Girl could branch out of their own lane and still keep that signature mood intact. During all this, TikTok started pushing TV Girl into a completely new spotlight. Songs like Lovers Rock, Not Allowed, and Cigarettes Out the Window suddenly started trending on the app. These songs were from previous albums released years earlier, but out of nowhere they were being used in thousands of videos, and this completely shifted their career. By 2021, their streaming numbers were insane compared to before. What used to be this little indie band that you'd find through word of mouth or random blog playlists was suddenly one of the most streamed indie pop groups on the internet. The funny part is, they didn't blow up because of some new single. It was their old music finding a second life online. This area is important because it really turned TV Girl from a niche indie act into a household name in the online music world. It set them up perfectly for the next chapter because now the question wasn't who's TV Girl, it's what are they going to do next. By 2022, TV Girl wasn't just an underground favorite anymore. They were one of the most streamed indie bands online. Thanks to TikTok and word of mouth, songs like Lovers Rock, Not Allowed, Blue Hair, and Cigarettes Out the Window were everywhere. This wave of new fans pushed the band to a whole new level. Their shows, which used to feel like little cult gatherings, suddenly were selling out bigger venues. If you look at their touring history, the jump from small clubs to festivals and theaters happened fast. For a band that spent years grinding under the radar, 2022 felt like the moment they truly broke through. In 2022 came the release of Grapes Upon the Vine. This was their first full studio album since Death of a Party Girl in 2018. It marked a shift in their style. Instead of focusing on toxic love and dating culture like their earlier work, this record dove into more spiritual, religious, and existential themes. Songs like The Nighttime carried a more reflective tone, almost like TV Girl was growing up alongside their fans. It wasn't just about relationships anymore. It was about the bigger questions of faith, purpose, and morality. Sonically, Grapes Upon the Vine still had the same dreamy, sample-heavy TV Girl sound, but the lyrics carried a weight that showed the band evolving past just being the TikTok indie group. Some fans were surprised by the new direction, but a lot of people respected it for showing growth and proving that TV Girl wasn't just stuck making the same record over and over. By 2025, TV Girl was already a solidified cult favorite, but they showed again that they weren't afraid to experiment outside their usual world. That's where the collab with George Clanton came in. George is a Vaporwave pioneer, known for his dreamy, nostalgic soundscapes that feel like tuning into a radio station from another dimension. When he linked up with TV Girl, it was a kind of perfect match. Both have this retro-inspired, sample-heavy approach, but in different flavors. Now, I'm sure I'm gonna butcher this album name, but the album is called Philenium, I believe. It hit a sweet spot that neither artist had fully tapped into on their own. George brought in these lush, reverb-soaked synths and hypnic drum patterns that felt like they were pulled straight out of a warped VHS tape. TV Girl layered on top of that with their signature cut-and-paste sampling and Brad's deadpan delivery. The result was something dreamlike but also grounded, almost like listening to a breakup story unfold underwater. Where TV Girl usually leans into lo-fi pop with hip-hop rhythms, George stretched everything out, giving the songs a hazier, more psychedelic weight. The melodies washed over you instead of hitting you directly, and that gave Brad's vocals this detached, almost ghostly quality, turning heartbreak and apathy into something cosmic. Now, that pretty much sums up the story of TV Girl. However, if you're an older fan of them, you might have realized I'm leaving something out. I'm sure you've noticed that in some TV Girl tracks, there seems to be a sampled voice that appears multiple times throughout their albums. They even name dropped, but it goes over a lot of heads. That sampled voice is an actual artist who makes their own music, and her name is Matty Acid. However, Matty Acid is just Brad, the lead singer, pitching his voice up to put on the persona of a girl. I'm sure you're asking yourself, why did Brad do that? By creating Matty as a persona, Brad essentially built a female counterpart who could embody the same irony, bitterness, and humor, but from the other side of the story. Instead of just being the guy commenting on toxic relationships, Matty could be the other voice in those stories, not softening them, but sharpening them. It's like he wanted someone who could go toe-to-toe with his delivery, so it wouldn't just feel like him poking fun at the idea of romance. There's also a theatrical side to it. Brad's admitted in interviews that TV Girl is kind of about world building, creating this ironic, slightly exaggerated universe where relationships are always doomed and everyone's a little jaded. Matty Acid was a way to expand that world. Instead of pulling in a bunch of random features, he invented a character who could stick around and feel like part of the band's DNA. Matty Acid also has a full-length solo album called Matty Acid's Purple Hearts Club Band. If you haven't heard any of the songs, I'd highly recommend them. And honestly, I see Matty as one of TV Girl's best moments, and that's why I chose to leave it until the end. Since then, the band has been riding their biggest wave of success yet. They've sold out massive tours, gone viral multiple times, and cemented themselves as one of the most recognizable indie acts of the 2020s. What started as a small San Diego trio making sample-heavy blog tracks is now a band with a global cult following, a handful of viral anthems, and a reputation for making indie pop that somehow feels timeless. So yeah, that's the journey of TV Girl up to now. And if you couldn't already tell, I'm a huge fan of TV Girl, and I felt their actual musical talent is very overlooked. That's why I made this video in the first place. I hope you learned something about the band or even got curious enough to go check out one of their less popular songs. But for now, that's all in this video, and if you enjoyed, I'd appreciate if you consider subscribing. Please leave a comment on what artists or bands you'd like to watch me take a deep dive into next. I hope you all have an amazing day or night. Thank you.